More, let's speak to Oana Popescu, editor-at-large of Foreign Policy magazine Romania, and the director of the GlobalFocus Center. That's a think tank based in Bucharest. Hello to you, Oana. Thank you for speaking to Paris Direct. We're just listening to our correspondent saying that maybe we are at a crossroads now in Romania. How do you see it?
Yes, indeed. I think we are, because what's at play, I think, is whether Romania will continue down its democratic European path, which it's been taking for 2 decades now, and that's both domestically in terms of rule of law, democratic standards, and so on and so forth, and also in foreign policy and security, whether it will continue to be resting on the 2 pillars of its strategic orientation, which are the EU and NATO, or whether it will have a much more, let's say, ambiguous foreign policy, which is more amenable to pressure from the Trump administration, which very much matches the interests of the Kremlin, whether it's going to gradually turn more to partnerships with non-Western countries and be more amenable to China, for instance. So I think that is very much the confrontation here, and it's between 2 very polarized parts of society. One that is mobilizing to keep Romania on its course because it feels that it's being threatened, and the other one which is angry enough with the political class to try and overturn the current system, no matter what, no matter whether there's a better future in sight or no future in sight, but just to sort of voice this anger.
And those are 2 different factions of the population, as you say. I'm wondering if there's one commonality, that perhaps both sides are angry with the way that the election was handled last year and whatever has come out of that.
No, I wouldn't say both sides are angry with the way that the election was handled. I would say that both sides are angry with the performance of the political class and with the quality of governance and with the electoral offer, which, to be honest, stays just as weak and disappointing this time on both camps. The sovereignist camp has produced George Simeon, who is the front runner, who did run at the end of last year, but lost and underperformed as compared to expectations. And the pro-democratic camp has produced one person, the mayor of Bucharest, who is genuinely liberal, I guess, and also seen as an anti-establishment figure, but with little popularity, perhaps outside the capital. So it remains to be seen whether he will have the capacity to mobilize voters. And the other, the coalition candidate, is anything that I mean, everything that people actually didn't want to see. A figure from the old political elites who's made a career within Romanian politics over the past decades. So no change as compared to the past. But when it comes to the annulment of elections, I think only one side feels that they were robbed of their vote, whereas the other side, the pro-democratic side, is rather disappointed that this hasn't been prevented and dealt with earlier, both the Russian interference and the domestic attempts to overturn the democratic constitutional order, rather than dealing with it at the very last moment in a way that is well, quite traumatic for the whole society.
Yeah, and on that last note, what could have Romanian institutions done better to try to have prevented any alleged Russian meddling?
Well, I think right now what we're seeing is that Russian propaganda is much more visible, much more acknowledged as such. It comes from accounts with a pretty clear Russian identity. I think in the meantime, Romanian institutions and even journalists have been much better placed to uncover the disruptive networks that have been working to disrupt the current elections. And over the past few days, we've had multiple publications. Even French media has published an inquiry which has also used data from the Romanian intelligence service to show how Russia has tried to overturn the elections even before Călin Georgescu was the main player, trying to support Diana Șoșoacă, the candidate who was barred from running last year. But like I said, all of these things I think are now much more visible. They're clearly identifiable and they're monitored by the institutions. There's stronger dialogue with the social media platforms and better mechanisms in place to remove such content which is inauthentic and online. Other than that, pro-Russian propaganda continues, but it is within the boundaries of the democratic game. So, we seem to have a pretty high turnout. So whatever the result, whether it's going to be influenced by pro-Russian narratives or not, is going to be quite legitimate, probably.
And if people want a candidate that is Eurosceptic or NATO skeptic, then that's within their democratic right. I guess it depends on, as you say, whether it's within the legal realm or not. After the court's decision to annul last year's election, a string of arrests were made. Whatever came out of those arrests, and what more do we know about the people who were arrested?
This continues to be investigated and prosecuted. If I'm not mistaken, Călin Georgescu is under 7 counts of illegal behavior before and during the campaign. I think we've seen some details emerge every now and then, but it's an ongoing investigation. It's actually, it's more ongoing investigations because one is done by the fiscal authority looking into the illicit funding. There's another one that looks into the attempted coup, trying to overturn the constitutional order. There are others that are looking into his election campaign and that of his accomplices. So multiple investigations, not a lot of details disclosed precisely because they're ongoing. And I just wanted to perhaps nuance a little bit what you said, that people might want a pro-sovereignist candidate, except there's at this point we see clearly that there's no such thing as people. I think we see at least 2 very, very different parts of society, and pretty much one that is so dissatisfied and feels so underrepresented politically and disadvantaged economically that it is willing to basically burn down the house just to call attention. And the other one that's rather trying to make changes to the quality of governance and democracy, but within the same framework that we've known so far. So something that we see in many European countries, and perhaps what's happening these days in Romania and what happened at the end of last year is clearly a source of lessons learned for many other EU countries.
Indeed. Important nuance. Thank you very much, Oana Popescu, speaking to us from Bucharest.